friends. Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 102. This is Friday, January 12th, 2024. I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thanks for joining me today. So Flosstube means cross stitch mostly, and Variety Show means something else, and we'll start with cross stitch and discover Variety Show later. And I'm going to just jump right in. To my surprise, I have quite a few pieces to show today, and there's a few odd reasons for that. But last week when I did a video, I wasn't sure I would even do a video today because I wasn't sure how much cross stitch I would have to show, but turns out I do. So I'm going to just jump right in. Winter Rose Manor by With Thy Needle and Thread, Brenda Gervais. And I worked on this border up here. I completed it's so hard to see. It's much easier to see in person. Let me fold this down and see if that helps at all, a little bit. So you see those diamonds. I finished all of the diamonds. The whole border is finished in terms of the basic parts of it. And I filled in some of the diamonds, so I just have a bunch more around the corner to fill in. I wanted to do that flower pot too, but I both didn't have time and didn't have inclination. I was much more interested in simple, geometric, small amount of counting kind of stitching this week. A Bristol Sampling by Violets and Verses. This was a gift to the participants of the Great British Sampler Weekend from Jennifer. Again, I didn't look up her name. So it's a band sampler, simple little band sampler based on a Bristol sampler which is called Martha Warboys 1878. And Leslie and Teresa. So this is the whole length of it, and I got the capital alphabet done. I think I'd done the crown. I don't know if I'd done ABC last time, but so it's interesting that the pattern omitted by accident V and W, but the Facebook group for the Great British Sampler Weekend had a little chart that Jennifer had added in. So that's that. I'm going to finish that this month. In fact, when I get started on it, it's hard to stop working on it. So I might even finish it soon. The first weekend of the month, which was last weekend, was designated by Brenda and Laura of Brenda and the Serial Starter a couple years ago as Blackbird Design Weekend Stitch Along. And it was the idea that the Blackbird Design Weekend was the first weekend of every month. And I have pretty much stuck to that since then. Of course, I forget to post things on Instagram or wherever, but this is the Mighty Acorn, which is in the book Winds of Autumn. And this book has so many things in it that I want to stitch. I already had stitched, as you may remember from last year, I had already stitched this cute little piece, which is called Spell of the Moon. I gave that to my friend Cindy for her birthday, which is October 31st. And there's so many other things in there I want to stitch, but I'm working on this right now. Again, I was interested in fill-in and sort of simple stitching, so I mostly worked on the house. I finished out this window. I've put the mullion over the doorway and counted out to get over to that side. I don't think I did anything else. And I didn't have a lot of time. Anne was here. We played games as I predicted we would. And, you know, other things. So I think maybe Cindy came over. So anyway, that was fun to work on. Not a lot of progress. Now I realized that last week I showed a few pieces, and this week I'm showing almost all the other pieces. So in some ways, these 2 weeks, plus possibly next week, will end up being a whip parade. So this is Sampler 193 by 2x2 Stitch Art. Back when Russia first invaded Ukraine, I was really struck by a desire to be helpful in some way, and so I went on to Etsy. I mean, in a way that was more directly affecting individual people rather than going through the International Red Cross or something like that, because I don't know why. I just decided that's how I wanted to approach it. And so I bought a bunch of charts off Etsy, PDF charts from Ukrainian designers, and that was one of them. And I'm sorry it's in the hoop because I'm using it in a challenge right now, and I'm, pretty well positioned to keep stitching, but you get the idea. My hope is to finish this year. And the other day when I pulled it out, I think we were watching football, and in the course of 1 quarter, I managed to stitch 159 stitches, or maybe it was even less than a quarter. So it really goes fast. All one color, pretty geometric and easy to count situation. Now this does not go fast. Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather, I have stitched about 250 stitches since the last time I showed this to you, which was October, possibly. I mean, it's just so striking. I'm so inspired by it when I show it on the camera, because up close it just is mishmashy, but it clearly is not mishmashy. So I've been working on this girl here. I filled in a lot of individual stitches, 1 or 2 stitches of a color, because they have to be filled in sometime. So I might as well do it. So her face and arms are almost finished. There's 1 or 2 stitches there. And then she's the one here. Yeah. So you see she's sort of lying on the marble bench and her dress is trailing down there. And I think, who would lie on a marble bench? But that's what she's doing. Maybe it's cool. Under the roof of Blue Ionian weather, you have to seek some coolness from the cool marble. So anyway, that is this. Again, this is more of a whip parade because I've done 250 stitches, but I defy you to show me where they are. They're just so much confetti in this piece. Now, I'm working on a hope to get halfway between where I started this year and the end of this, by the end of this year, which I think is around 14 or 15,000 stitches, and then finish this in 2025. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to the pattern of not showing that particular piece every week, because even if I were to do every stitch that is scheduled for the week and be completely caught up, you wouldn't really be able to detect much difference every week. So I'll show it every now and then. And then the other one I've been working on, I just picked up last night or the night before, is Jane Thompson 1838 by the Scarlet House. Now this was an exclusive through the Homespun Needlework Facebook group, and it's through Shepherd's Needle in Arkansas. And I liked this sampler because I like the saying on it, the verse on it. I mean, it's a very common verse for samplers of that era. And I like the house and the potted trees and such in the motifs down below. She's 9 years old. And this is quite, it's beautiful, elegant layout and nice borders and all. So, and sorry, there's a needle on it because I'm in the middle of a flower. You will not remember where I was before, so it doesn't matter. I'll just show it to you. The flowers each have 101 stitches in them. And I've counted out the stitches in the letters, in the words. I finished her name Thompson, only the T was there. And then the word marked, and I've done almost four complete flowers across the top of the border. Now, why do I know how many stitches those are? Here's the whole thing, by the way. I really should finish the border to be sure it meets. So the reason I know how many stitches and why I counted out on a paper pattern how many stitches there are is because I belong to a Facebook group called Semi-Sane Stitchers. And they have a bunch of events during the year, i.e. challenges. And somehow they you earn entries into a drawing and you earn prizes. I mean, real prizes, money, gift cards to 123 Stitch and things like that. I don't know where the money for that comes from, but there are about 900 or so members, and in order to be a member, there has to be space in the group, so there's some cap. I'm not sure what the cap is. And you have to participate in at least 3 events during the course of the year. Well, my most favorite events are the ones where you have to stitch a certain number of stitches, a reasonable number, in order to achieve a some kind of a goal. So right in the month of January, we're having the snowball fight. And that is very fun. I didn't start participating until yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. Or maybe it was the night before, because Anne was here and I wasn't stitching as conscientiously, as undividedly as I have to really make it worthwhile to participate in the snowball fight. But what you do is you post a picture of your piece, for instance, this one, and you say, this is my starting point for snowball number 1, and then you stitch 300 stitches, you post a picture at the end of it, I've finished 300 stitches for snowball number 1, and then the administrator of the group awards you a snowball, which is an image in the media files of the group. You capture that image and then you paste it on someone else's entry into the snowball fight and say, I've thrown a snowball at you. And then in order to dry off from being hit by a snowball, you have to stitch 100 stitches on a whip. So you show a picture before and after. So with luck, you can stitch a snowball every day and maybe dry off from a snowball every day. So I'm using Jane Thompson as my snowball whip, and I'm using the Sampler 193, the red one, as my drying off whip, because it's so easy and fast to get 100 stitches in that one. And I want to make good progress on Jane Thompson this year, so it seems like a good thing to use. Now I could switch, after a while I could say, I've done enough on Jane Thompson, it's time to do, A. Robson or something. Or on a weekend, the weekend that is the Nativity Sal, I could say I'm stitching the Bethlehem piece as my snowball one, so 300 stitches. Now that does mean for these ones that I'm doing on paper patterns that I have to count. But it's all right, it is kind of interesting, actually, to see how many stitches things take. So in my little sheet of cross-stitch projects for this year, this is the ones that I haven't shown you in last week's video and in this week are Tiger Stare, which is the full coverage tiger project, as you may remember, and Hannah Campbell, which is the other large-ish Hands Across the Sea sampler. So those two are the only ones that remain. And I will probably stitch on both of them this coming week, so probably next video you'll see them. And that will be it. Then that's everything that I'm currently stitching on. Now there is another project which I alluded to or mentioned last week, Jane Boyer 1831. It's from the 1830s. I mentioned it last week. My friend Leslie and I think I said we had grand plans for it. So she is reproducing it, charting it, I should say. from the actual sampler, which is in the Leroy Historical Society in Leroy, New York. And I will stitch it. I will stitch the model. And the idea is that we are going to have this sampler available as a hardcover, a hard copy. I don't think we're going to plan to do PDFs. Leslie, what do you think? I don't think so. Through the Leroy Historical Society in conjunction with a mini retreat that she and I are going to put on in Leroy in mid-October. I think we've just settled on a date, Saturday, October 19th. So the piece will be available then. And there will be some other things developed from it, some little small projects developed from the motifs and alphabets in the sampler with the colors of the sampler. And Leslie has been working on an adaptation of it over the past year or so. And I've seen it, it's beautiful colors, very lovely. And the retreat attenders will get a kit that will let you do one or more of the little small projects that are related to the sampler, and you can purchase the whole sampler, or maybe we're providing the whole sampler. Can't remember. I don't remember the details. We've had a few Zoom meetings about it. It's a little bit challenging to plan this. Well, it would have been nearly impossible to plan it before Zoom became part of the fabric of our lives. But even with Zoom, it's somewhat challenging, but we're working on it. And registration will open at some point. I'll have information about that. It will include a walk up the street from where the retreat will be held to see Jane Boyer's house where she grew up, and walk over to the Leroy Historical Society where that sampler and a couple of other samplers of Leroy provenance are on display. And I believe I'll be giving a talk about something. It won't be a Flosstube and variety show. It'll have something to do with that sampler or something. Leslie and I are talking about what that might be. But anyway, I really hope that if you are in the area of Western New York and you are interested in reproduction samplers, you would consider coming. And I know a couple of you viewers are in that area. By the way, here's another huge draw. Our little retreat is going to be held, what is it, about 30 miles or less from Hobby House Needleworks. So there you go. Combine it with a trip to one of the great cross-stitch meccas in the world. So anyway, that's coming up. Once I have the chart from Leslie, or the beginnings of the chart from Leslie, I will be stitching on that, and I'll show it as I work on it. As you can imagine, we're working out timelines for me to finish it so it can get framed, so it can be photographed for the cover of the chart, packet of pages that the chart will be. So that's, it's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to doing this. I've never done anything like this before. And that will be a big project for this year. I think it's around 250 stitches square, something like that. So it's not small, but it's not enormous. It's very, I think, doable for 5 or 6 months of stitching. So that is something coming up. So watch this space. So variety show. Well, as I mentioned last week, especially with all that's gone on in the past month, I don't have a whole lot of variety show ideas right at this moment. Now I will be talking about something next week, which will be familiar to some of you. But I thought I would at least show you my knitting project. So this is the pattern I'm using, which is called, very cleverly, Fantastic Lace Scarf. Mountain Colors. And it was originally, I think, I think I bought the pattern without any yarn, although it calls for Mountain Colors Crazy Foot, which is what the picture is shown as, and needle size number 7, which I'm not using 7, and I wouldn't want to use 7 for the yarn I am using. So this is my progress. I have to figure out which is the front and which is the back. It's a little hard to see, but you see it's wavy and it's lacy. It's a fantastic lace scarf. And so far it's very purple. And I may have shown you this yarn last week, but it's mostly purple. There's some sort of peacock blue in there, some lighter purple. And as you can see from the ball, there's a little bit of olivey green, and that's going to be fun. Most of it is purple, I would say. I mean, just looking at the ball, purple or this dark sort of, it's so hard to tell what color these things are. There's sort of a dark wine red in there too. I'm enjoying this. I have 2 skeins of this, so I'll knit probably more than 1 skein on the scarf section, and I can knit a hat, and I might knit some fingerless gloves for myself. So I'm using, this is fingering weight yarn. I'm using a size 4 needle. This happens to be an Aida needle. Can you see it's sort of ridged? I think they make a few different kinds of needles. My friend Anne has done a lot of looking into knitting needles and things, and she thought I might enjoy trying this. And I will say it's one of the slickest needles I've ever used. But so far, I have not lost any stitches because of that. But you do have to sort of be aware. But this is fun, and these rows of reverse stockinette between the lacy parts, one huge advantage of that is if you get off in the pattern, you can correct it in those stockinette rows, and then when you do the next group of pattern rows, you'll be right. You'll be all right. Now you see this is the chart. A 12 row repeat. I find on lace knitting, it is hard for me to tell which row I'm on in some patterns because, well, just because it's hard to identify what stitch was that in the previous row to sort of clue me into where I am. And I worked on a ribbon lace scarf a few years ago. In fact, I've made 2 of them. And it involves, it's like a zigzag kind of ribbon design which has open lacy stitches, yarn over type formation that lead the stockinette this way and then this way down the scarf. I think it might be a 22 row repeat or 24. And at least in that one, every other row, the wrong side rows were all purl cross. This one isn't. This one, every row has something that you need to notice, except for those reverse stockinette rows, which there are 4 of, but only 3 of them are reverse stockinette. One is the opposite. It does the opposite. So it just takes more brain power. And if I were sitting and knitting constantly, if this were my only hobby, were knitting, I might be able to manage it better, but I can't. I can't manage it better. That's all right. Every time I finish a row, I check it off. And especially, I will say in these lace patterns, other kinds of patterns I can look, like if it's a basket weave or square and a square or something. I mean, clearly, I do not have to check off how many rows I did on a garter stitch scarf, because they're all the same, every row, doesn't matter. So anyway, I am working on that. I was up in the sewing room yesterday for the first time in, 3 weeks, I guess, and took stock. I finished the top of a little Christmas quilt wall hanging table topper thing. One of the things I want to do sewing wise this year is to use fabric in my stash. So I have to think about what did I plan to do with this fabric, and if I didn't have a plan, if I bought it because I loved it, what do I want to do with it? What would be great? And I have to give away some things because, you know, this is the problem with doing crafts, is you do them faster than you use them. Or in the case of a quilt, how many quilts do you need draped over your couch or on your bed or on all the guest beds? There's a limit. It is finite. But the making of quilts, it's much greater limit. So anyway, those are things I've been thinking about this week and yesterday when I was up in the sewing room. I've been thinking about it for longer than a week. But now that I'm feeling pretty good, I have more brain power to think about that kind of thing. So I'm sure you'll see more of that. And Cindy and I are getting together tomorrow for some sewing, and we will plan out when we're going to do our next Galloping Horse video, which we were going to do the beginning of December, but things, life, not feeling great, all got in the way. So anyway, that's good. So I think that's all I have to talk about today. I hope that you found something of interest. Hope you enjoyed seeing my cross-stitch projects. I always enjoy showing them. It's inspiring and fun for me to show them. I feel like I'm more intentional about working on them because I think, what would I like to say about this? Or what would be interesting about this project to someone that watches my videos? And whereas I realize that you're across the screen and I can't see you, I feel as if I'm together with you, that we get together on Friday afternoons for me to talk to you about my cross stitch and whatever else, whatever other odd thing comes to mind. So I appreciate you watching. I enjoy making the videos and I'm thankful that you watch them. And I love your comments. Makes me smile. And thanks so much for the many well wishes on my recovery from my appendectomy. As I say, I'm feeling pretty good. And I guess that is really all that I have to talk about today. So thanks again, as I've said about 17 times. And I hope you have a great stitching week or doing whatever it is that you will be doing this week. And I hope to catch you again next week. Many blessings to you, friends.